one of the hardest parts about wrestling, and this is for boys or girls, is you go out there in a 26-foot circle and you battle, and you sometimes you get pinned, and then your heart hurts, and then you have to shake the opponent and his coach's hands. And I think so many lessons are learned in that moment of where, you know, you'll see kids get mad when they're younger, and then you'll see those same kids at 12 are shaking the hands and they're running off, and they might go into the bleachers and cry, but it's no longer on the mat.
What is up? Welcome back to another episode of the Better Dad podcast. It's been a little while since we've recorded. The reality is that trying to be a great father and trying to be efficient and trying to have a lot of coals in the fire means sometimes projects that aren't monetized, that are not making any money, tend to take a back seat. However, I do know that there's so much value in having real conversations with men and women around the topic of parenthood and fatherhood. And I normally plan these out so much more efficiently, but Travis and I got connected last night. And so Travis Hiteshew is the owner of Hooligan Wrestling Academy. It's a youth wrestling. They've got ages 4 to all the way up to 18.
18, yep.
And so I got connected with him last night through a friend of mine, and his desire was to grow the academy, to grow the business, to find more kids to come along and be a part of what they're doing. And so I went out there and I saw the space and I asked a bunch of questions, and, you know, you get super personal into people's business. And I'm asking him all these things about his philosophy and have you reached out to these people and have you done all this stuff? And as we start talking, he, not on purpose, but just starts sharing part of his story that is so significant to me that I said, man, I think this needs to be captured and told, at least on the podcast. I want people to know him. I want people to know what he's about, what he stands for. I want people to know that if they send their kids to Hooligan Wrestling Academy, that not only are they getting superior coaching, not only are they getting superior technique, but they're getting someone who is grounded in key principles for development, about character building, about toughness, self-defense, discipline, a lot of characteristics that I think a lot of our youth are probably lacking in significantly right now. So, and then as we started talking, he revealed to me that he has 5 kids. And I was like, woof, we got to talk to the guy that's got 5 kids. I've got 1 and I don't do it very well all the time. So we can at least talk to the guy that's got 5. So Travis is here with us today, graciously giving us his time. So we're just going to get into it. I just want him to kind of like tell our audience, just kind of your story. Like, how long have you been in Springfield? Like, what is your connection with this area?
Okay. I was born in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I lived pretty much my whole youth there, except on and off. When my parents were in trouble, I would get sent to Hermitage, Missouri, which is about an hour away. And I'd go to my grandma's for 6 months, you know, before going back. And when I was 18 years old, you know, I was just sick of the toxic that was there, you know, and my brother, Brandon, had lived with my grandma pretty much since he was, I think, 8 years old. So he told me I could come up and live with him. And that's where my journey started here. And about 6 months later, I had a baby on the way. And that's my oldest. His name's Bradley. He's about to be 19 years old now. Just moved out of the house.
Okay.
Graduated last year.
Okay.
And he's the one who kind of taught me dadhood. You know, I mean, I think every day with him, I tell him, you know, I'm sorry when I messed up, because every day with you was new. It was a new,
sure.
You know, I mean, every day was practice. You know, I said, whereas, you know, your little brother Zane, who's 1, is going to get, somebody who has a lot of practice.
So you have a 19-year-old and a 1-year-old.
And a 1-year-old, yep.
Oh, well, then you have a great experience resume to talk about multiple kids in the household, multiple levels. So I want to go back. You said the toxicity of your parents, you would leave mom and dad to come stay with grandma.
Yeah, and it was more they would get in trouble, and then I'd kind of be forced to, or the state, you know. And I mean, I had good enough, I think, family around me, even on my dad's side, who wanted to take me, but I was just felt the most comfortable with my grandma here, the most connected. So
your relationship with your dad growing up, what is that like?
On and off, I mean, he taught me sports at a young age. I mean, I try to always think of the good. He wasn't there like often. He went times that I didn't know that I know now. He
Mm,
was in prison,
mm,
but I wasn't told then. I thought he just disappeared, and that kind of hurt me then. And but more, I kind of got mad at the people who were just lying to me. I wish they would have
mm,
just been honest and been like, "He's there," so I'm like, know where my dad is instead
yeah.
of just wondering where he's at in the world,
Mm,
and thinking about it every day. But um, me and him, I mean, I think I got along with him great. Other than him not being around, I never held resiliency. He taught me how to play every sport besides wrestling. Actually, we kind of had a little falling out because I quit a baseball team that was a Little League World Series, a super traveling team, to wrestle because
wow.
I liked the fight in wrestling, man. I
Sure.
liked the grit. It something about it just intrigued me, and I kind of gave up every sport that I'd ever played in my
Mm,
life just to wrestle. So.
okay. So a lot of some of the stuff we talk about on the Better Dad podcast, it's not the idea of being better than anybody else. It's just the concept of trying to be better each day. Like if I was this today, tomorrow I'm going to improve on this. So, how is your relationship with your dad shaped the way that you parent and father your kids now?
Um, I always tried to take the good things. One thing I had a big philosophy on, and I kind of created this my own, was there's always good, and there's mostly gonna always be good in your parents, even if they're not there.
Mm,
So, like for my mom and my dad, I try to take the three things that I loved about them the most, and incorporate that into my parenting, and then make sure that I'm doing the exact opposite of the three things that I dislike the
mm,
most.
that's
And
good.
like my dad, for one, was not being there, so I've never not been a part of my kid's life.
Mm.
Like not for one
So,
day, so
how are you present for five kids ranging from 1 to 19? You know what I mean? Like that's it's not like for me. I love being present for my son, and that's an intentional piece for me. But dude, how do you show up for five kids?
man, well, as I got, I had one at a time, so, I incorporated them, like, as I went, we started 2, and my wife is great. She came in at 20 years old in college, and I had 2 kids already, and she
Mm,
just stepped in where their mom wasn't, and she has actually been super wonderful. I mean, she's the leader of the house, she makes sure all the appointments are set, I mean, I'll take them to them, but dentist appointments, she has it scheduled, and just being present. I make sure that, all my kids are in sports and I let them choose. Like my daughters did gymnastics before they wrestled, and
sure.
just making sure you show up, before you're showing up to go play, or like even around a golf. I love to golf, but just making sure that you're present and showing up for them
Yeah.
is like pretty much the most important thing to them, is that just being present there and showing up at their activities and their plays in school. And
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a super undervalued concept of parenthood to where a lot of times, especially men, we just feel like we don't have enough to give our kids. We want to give them the world, and so when we fall apart or when we fail, really just being present is a majority of it. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to have this well thought out plan. You don't have to be the perfectionist at everything, but like knowing that at the worst day ever, I know my dad is still going to be around.
yep.
Like that's some security that you just can't.
And that was big for me because when I was 19, I came from a bad neighborhood, and I have tattoos that I wish I didn't have anymore. I like grew up pretty rough, and I didn't have much when I had a kid, but I knew I could be there.
Mm,
Job to job, learning things. I wasn't as disciplined I was when I was a kid, and then after my dad passed away, I just kind of fell into that life for like a year and a half, where I kind of lost my discipline, my
sure.
focus in life. It wasn't really depression though; it was just kind of circumstances.
Yeah.
Of where I was. I think kids are resilient. That's one thing I learned when my dad
Mm,
died. Is like you have a lot of resiliency, especially through like the first death you go through.
yeah.
Is that I came out of that pretty well, and once I moved here, I just completely just changed my entire life. I
Mm.
just was like, I'm not gonna be around that, and I think it changed my mom too, as well. She does great now. She's probably my best friend. I talk to her,
Yeah.
multiple times a week.
So you say circumstances. There were a lot of circumstances in your life that kind of helped derail some of the progress that you had. Talk about some of those circumstances.
Yeah, well, my parents were in and out of jail. I mean, my mom and my stepdad are still together to this day. I mean, they've went through, I mean, the trenches, and I love them both. But when I was young, you know, it was domestic violence, my stepdad running from the cops on motorcycles,
Mm,
going to jail, evictions,
mm.
you know, it was living in motels. So it was just a lot of like up and down
Chaos.
chaos. And I stayed pretty grounded through it. Like I always got good grades. I pretty much have been a positive person, like no matter the circumstances of
Yeah.
my life.
Yeah.
People wouldn't know like if they saw me that I had went through that because I've always just stayed pretty positive.
Sure.
And I don't know if that's like just a personality trait or maybe a blockage of something I didn't want to feel. I'm not
I mean,
quite sure, but
perspective matters, and whether you learn it at 16 or at 60, I think there is a lot of value in finding the good in things. I think it's really easy for us to become victims and immediately identify the things that are hard or the things that, hurt us or prevented us from doing something. But I do think there's a lot of value, even if it was kind of coming from a scary place, even if it was, I just got to get the bad out of my mind so I can stay focused on the good.
yep,
Okay, so chaos, absolute chaos in the upbringing. So then you have your first child
yep.
and no clue what to do,
No clue.
right?
Never held a baby in my life. Actually, I don't think I'd ever held a baby in my entire life until I held him. You know, maybe when I was 2, but never a newborn baby.
Right.
It was terrifying. And he was actually supposed to be a girl. They did ultrasound, said he was a girl, everything. We had all pink clothes, baby shower for a girl. And then I'm not gonna lie, when he came out, I was like, those are balls. And they're like, push me. They're like, let's make sure it's not a birth defect. And I'm like, I'm like giving him the look. Like, I
I've
know
seen
what
those
those
before.
are. I'm like, how do you guys miss this? And the family was actually so good that by the time we went out, we only had like 2 pink outfits. They had went and like exchanged them all.
Wow.
Everything was blue,
Wow.
And then we were just young parents. We lived in an apartment off of Bennett Street, and I worked at La Hacienda Mexican Grill,
Sure.
and they're still my friends to this day.
It's awesome.
And I gave them a rough time. I was like a young, kind of a hoodlum, I had an attitude, and they gave me a chance, and they taught me how to serve tables, which actually, helped me a lot down the road.
Sure.
Because if you're not in school and don't have a skill or a degree, I mean, serving is probably what made me the most money. It was the best job that I had to provide.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was like, didn't take any schooling or
Sure.
a trade or anything that, entry level job. And so I did that for a while. And then we moved back to Colorado, me and the mother of my son. And we had our daughter. I wanted to have one where I was born. So we went there, and actually that was probably one of the toughest times right before we had like split. My mom was in a halfway. She was in work release.
Okay.
And we went down there to help her because my stepdad was going to prison. So we were just going to like go half and half on an apartment. And she went to a 7-Eleven, and they gave her a fake $50 bill, and she paid a work release with it. And then they took away her whole, they made her go for her whole sentence. And they're like on the phone thinking she's like making fake money. And she wasn't. My mom did a lot of things, but
Yeah.
making fake money wasn't one of them.
Gotcha.
And then that was the biggest struggle. That was 2008, and that was probably the hardest financial year that in my life America has ever seen. I mean, in 2008, gas was $5,
Yeah.
which is,
Yeah.
I mean, minimum wage. People were making less. I mean, it was job market was. I think I applied for 150 jobs before I got one, and I actually gave plasma one time for $60, and I went and played a poker game, and I paid my rent for 4 months while I got a job. Yeah, I actually did that, and I don't know if it was
whatever it takes, right? Like
God looking out for me,
Yeah.
because you don't, as a former professional poker player, you don't always win. And it
Sure.
felt like for those 4 months, I was just always winning. And then I got a job at Pet Boys, and that was my best job to date.
Yeah.
Like at that point in my life, that was like I was making good money.
Right.
I was a service advisor, so I made commission, and I was just doing really well.
Yeah.
And then their mother wanted to move back, and she's being promiscuous, just even there where she knew nobody.
Sure.
And then, online. So then she moved back, and obviously I followed right behind her. And then shortly after that, we
So
split.
did the kids go with her?
They did, but I immediately came. I mean,
Gotcha.
I don't think it was, she did that to me twice actually. And I immediately came because I knew that in my heart that I wanted it. I was going to be there.
Yeah.
And I felt like she was using them as like, not as like wanting to be there as me, but just against me.
It.
Yeah, weaponizing
It's
it
unfortunate, and it's not mom to dad, dad to mom. It just happens in the separation of parents. Sometimes it's really difficult to separate like hurt from a relationship
Yep.
and not let it bleed onto your kids and not let it bleed onto the situation with your
Mhm.
kids' parents. So
Absolutely.
like, yeah, I feel that heavily. That's tough for a lot of people.
Yeah, that was pretty tough, and then so I moved back, and we, like, tried to get back together a little bit, and then finally we just split, and about a month in, I was getting, like, kind of harassed by a lot of her friends because I was getting lied about a lot, and, I took the kids and I moved to Colorado, and, got an apartment down there, and I'm not gonna lie, I found any job that I could, and I was actually this is, like, the embarrassing one, though, is I was, like, a maid at a Motel 6, like, I was cleaning the rooms.
Why was that
But that was the
embarrassing?
first job. I mean,
Why was that
when you look
embarrassing?
at it, I mean, it's not really because anything to provide for your kids. But like when I look back at it, I kind of laugh at myself
I don't know,
because
man. Like if I can be anything, and I want to be intentional about this when I say this, men who do what is necessary for their children should never be embarrassed of that.
absolutely,
And so like I get it, knowing where you've made it to now, looking back on that, I'm sure there are things like, man, I wish I could have had a more glamorous job. But dude, there's nothing more beautiful and glamorous than a man who said whatever it takes.
yep,
So kudos for that. That's a big
yeah. It
deal.
was and it was first one. I was like there. I was like gonna take any job, obviously.
Yeah,
When I went
yeah.
there, my mom actually this is again when my stepdad finally got off parole. They were gonna get a house, so then they let me just have their apartment as they moved out.
Okay.
And Colorado is very expensive. If
Hmm.
anybody knows,
Yeah,
that's why I wouldn't live there now. It's just far too
yeah,
expensive.
it is.
And then one day we had talked and I was like, okay, well, you can take our daughter for, 3 months. I want to see how you do with her. And if you bring her back, we'll start talking about what we're going to do summers, because at that point I'm
Sure,
planning on staying there,
sure.
And so she took her, didn't bring her back. So 6 months later, she shows up at my doorstep pregnant, zero call, zero word. And she's like, I'm pregnant and I want Bradley to be there when the baby's born. And I'm like, absolutely not. I
Mm,
said, you didn't come through with ours, and now you're coming here uncalled with no call,
sure.
and you're trying to take him. And I'm like, absolutely not, zero. And then it's like a whirlwind is going through my head. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, what is happening here? And the next day, I go to work, and my mom takes my son Bradley, and she goes to McDonald's with him, and mom comes in and snatches him
Mm,
and takes him off. And they Amber alerted, and they caught her, but I didn't ask for child support or
mm,
anything, so they just let her go.
mm.
So, like, had I been, used the state and stuff and had all that, they would have let me keep him.
Yeah.
But since I didn't ask the government for help, they let her take him. And that was
It's
wild to
tough,
me.
man. That's tough, man. As I have these conversations all the time with men, about how to navigate that process. Because again, if at all possible, you want to do it as graciously as you can. You don't want animosity with your kid's parent. You don't want the nasty back and forth if you can avoid it. But sometimes when we look at the system, it's got a design, but far too often that design doesn't always fix or help certain situations.
Absolutely
And so for you not trying to need assistance, it ended up kind of,
biting me.
biting
And
you
I
a little
could have
bit.
used the assistance. I'm not going to lie.
Sure,
Like, I
sure.
probably could have used the food stamps at that point and that stuff. And
So she gets him from the McDonald's.
yeah,
They find her,
Lyman, Colorado. Yeah, they found her about 75 miles out. Amber alerted the whole state, just like you get them on your phone.
but then they let her go
They let her go
with your son.
with my son. And then the next day, actually, I mean, I think it was like 2.5 days later, I left my entire apartment. My mom was like mad. She's like, no, you stay here. And I said, no, if you stay here and get comfortable without your kids, you get comfortable without
Mm,
them.
mm.
And I said, I don't care if I break a lease, what I do. And I said, you're going to probably have to clean up my apartment. And I packed 2 bags. And I came here, I think it was 2 days later. And I stayed with my buddy in Joplin, my best friend, Josh Kelly. And one night I stayed under a bridge just to go see him in Springfield.
Mm.
I got a ride down here, and I was like, I just wanted to see my kids. And then finally a place opened up with my friend's dad who was like, hey, I have an extra room.
Okay.
And it was about 5 blocks from her house. And I knew once I got close enough that I wanted to be in their life more than she did.
Okay.
So I knew once she started giving them to me, it was going to slowly become I have them all the time.
Gotcha.
But I'm near her so she can
See
get
him
her
or feel
pictures,
comfortable.
see
Yeah.
them when she wants to, and stuff like that. And that's exactly pretty much how that played out.
Okay.
Was I moved there and then, I'd have them on the weekends and then that turned into, hey, Monday. And then
Yeah.
it slowly just became exactly. And I knew that was going to happen.
Sure,
That's why
sure.
I wanted to get as close as I could.
Okay. Okay.
And then I got my own place with my buddy. and they lived with me, and that's where I met my wife now. We worked at Fox and the Hound together.
Okay, so oldest daughter and son,
Mhm.
you and mom are separated,
Yep.
living close in Springfield,
Yep.
and she's pregnant.
Yep. Just had a baby. She had just actually at that point had the baby because
Okay,
by the time I got down here and then everything got settled, she'd had the baby.
gotcha.
So it was like,
So you
it took
then
a
you
couple
meet
months to get all that figured out.
so then you meet your now wife,
Yes.
who you're married to right now.
Yep.
Okay, and you're working together.
Yeah, I got a job at Fox and the Hound, and my buddy worked there, and he was a cook. And although I wanted to serve, it was mostly girl servers there, front of the house for UFC fights and
Sure,
stuff.
sure.
And so I just applied to be a cook. I didn't really care what I did, and I went in there for a cook, and then the manager hired me as a server,
Nice.
and I was like, yes, because that was like what I wanted to do more.
Okay.
And she was actually the first person I talked to when I went through the door, and she had a boyfriend at that point, so we were just friends for months until they split up. And
Just biding your time, huh, dude? You're just waiting.
yeah,
in the
I mean, I
shadows.
was the way she talked to me actually at the beginning. It wasn't like nothing like she said her boyfriend like by the next day,
Sure.
but we like talked outside for like 30 minutes. And in a man's mind,
I mean,
I was like,
you were hooked, dude.
yeah, I was like, I like this girl,
Okay. Okay.
And then I just waited it out, and actually when me and my buddy lived together, they moved into the apartments right next door.
Gotcha.
And then we like got a little closer, and then they split up at some point. We had moved at that point to a house,
Okay.
me and my buddy, and they split up, and then we started talking, and then that was over from there,
Okay.
And then she got pregnant quickly, which was wild because she's young in college,
Right.
and she gets pregnant, and that was when my third child was 2013.
Okay.
And she's 11, almost 12 years old now. And she wrestles for me as well, former
Yes.
gymnast.
Nice.
And she's doing really well. And my wife has just been, I mean, I can't give her enough credit. It's hard at 20 to come in with 2 kids.
Oh yeah.
And they're like not just babies, you don't know them. And then to treat them just like she does our other kids,
That's
I mean,
special.
like, no matter what, she showed up for every wrestling, she shows up, even with our son who's autistic, and he runs around the gyms. Like we call her lobby mom because when he's not wrestling or Lily's not wrestling, she's chasing him around the lobby.
Sure.
Dad's in there talking to coaches and wrestlers,
Sure.
and she's like, and that's like probably the point where I help the least.
Yeah.
And she's like, you don't help me at wrestling. I'm like, well, when I'm at wrestling, I'm at wrestling. I was like, it's just, I was like, I know so many people. It's hard for me just to focus on him running around because people are stopping me.
Yeah.
And they don't understand him as well, you
Yeah.
know? So, and I understand that. So.
Okay. So now how's the relationship with the oldest two's mom?
Their mom passed away. So my oldest two, when my oldest was 9, 7, this is about a year after I had had them like full time without her even like really seeing them at all. She'd just, kind of being wild out there. And I don't even talk to her very much. My line was always open, but didn't talk to her much for
Just the
about a
kids,
year.
Yeah.
And she actually got a job at Metropolitan Grill, and she was working there with one of my friends and her boyfriend, who I wasn't that big of a fan of. I mean, I actually have looked him up a few times, and it looks like he's doing good now, which I'm happy for him. He went through
Yeah.
a tough
I
time
respect
after
that.
this too.
Yeah. I respect that.
And then one day, her sister calls me and said that their mom is in the hospital, that she tried to kill herself.
Mm.
And we go to the hospital, and right away I knew, family's there, and she's like on, the life support machine.
Mm.
And then they're like, I was like, how long was oxygen? And they gave me like an estimate, and I'm like,
Mm.
And then there's a lot of people there though. Whenever she'd move, it was like, oh, she's gonna live. And then every night, like when I looked it up, they say, hey, you have to be 100% honest with your
Yeah.
kids, like no matter how hard it is. So for 7 straight nights, I had to go home and tell them that your mom's gonna die. Like
Man. Hold on a second. So we got a 9-year-old daughter,
9-year-old son, 7-year-old daughter.
9-year-old son. Okay, yeah, 9-year-old son, 7-year-old daughter, and you find out that their mom is in critical condition, with a high probability that she's not going to make it, and from a decision that she had made.
Yep.
And so you have to come home and face your children and tell them what
Every
happened.
night, pretty much I mean, because we went there, we'd visit the hospital for multiple hours every day. We were there pretty much for the whole 7 days
Yeah.
that it, this all happened in the hospital.
Mm.
And, the grandma and the women, and I'm not mad at them for it. I mean, I was a little bit at the time because they're like making my life a little harder. And, I told them, hey, stop telling them that she's going to live. I'd rather a miracle happen than more devastation happen. I said, they're already devastated.
And that's so tough, right? Because, just like we talked about perspective, you want to be optimistic, but also, we are the frontline defense for our kids.
Yep.
And like, if we cannot, like, it's a disservice to really not taper expectations.
Yep.
I mean, I love hope. I want hope to be significant in my son's life, but I also don't want him to be in a position where he is fed this idea that, if we just pretend it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. When in reality, like, you knew it was coming.
Yeah, and I knew it, and I could see it in it, after a couple of days passed, especially. Because the first day when she'd move, I was thinking the same thing. And then I obviously went and researched, looked up, because I'd never been in this situation.
Sure.
And they said that just happens.
Sure.
That's just an involuntary. That's not them. It's involuntary, And I was like, after I knew how long she hadn't had oxygen for, then my brain was like, just knew, my heart knew.
So what do you tell your kids?
Well, when they decided to, we all kind of knew. And then, they take them off of like the breathing machine, and then it takes them about like an hour to like pass away. And once they did that and they brought her in the room and comfortable, I actually, to my kids, we went in there and we said goodbye before it beeped, because that's traumatic.
Yeah.
People like want to be there for like sometimes this trauma, like, and I was like, no, we're going to go say bye and we're going to leave before that goes beep, beep, beep. Like, we're going to go say our goodbyes.
Gosh,
and
it's heavy, bro.
I took my son to an Oklahoma City playoff game. And that same day, we just went and got away. Me and my buddy took him down to Oklahoma City, and they were playing the Mavericks. Thought Westbrook hit a game winner. I'm a Nuggets fan, but it was fun. Thought Westbrook hit a game winner, and it was after the buzzer, and the whole place is going crazy, and then the whole place went. And my daughter went to a Justin Bieber concert the next day. We just tried to get their mind off of it for a little bit.
Bet. Yeah, for sure.
And then, playing the funeral, and then that was probably where it got really real.
Yeah.
It was like the funeral. It's kind of shock for all of us.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Once we had the funeral, that was like when it got real. And I'm trying to be strong for them while I'm wanting to grieve myself, So I kind of just, grieve when I was on the way to a poker tournament, listen to a song. Like, there was just times where I would let it out.
Yeah.
And just not in front of them, And I think it's okay to cry, but at that point was just one of those ones that I felt like I needed to be strong for them.
Yeah.
That was like my main.
No, that's a tough threshold, man. As men that we have to balance really well. Is that so? I said this on my Facebook the other day, and I told you this last night. I said sometimes boo-boos require kisses, and sometimes booboos require rubbing dirt in it. And, our response to trauma kind of tells our kids what to feel about said trauma.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So if we panic, if we fall apart, it doesn't mean that we don't want to be emotionally regulated in front of our children. But at the same time, man, like we want to be gracious enough to know they haven't experienced life like I have, and they need to have the space and the freedom to grieve how they need to, knowing that I'm going to be a consistency in a very inconsistent time.
Yep. And everyone's different. Like my daughter went to grieving counseling at what's it called on Glenstone? I'll think of the name, but she went there and she loved it.
Okay.
She liked it, she's like a little bit more outgoing. My son wanted nothing to do with it.
Okay.
He's super quiet. I think it hurt him later on. Like we had talks about it. I said, hey, you got to cry sometimes, dude.
Yeah.
Because he would cry when it initially happened, but then he tried to be a man too, even at 9 years old.
Sure.
Held it in. And I think that at some points that did affect his like psychology.
Sure. Yeah.
And in his brain, and he, struggles with like letting his emotions out or.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And he always has and then I tell him, hey, that's detrimental, but at the same time, I want you to learn to overcome, because a lot of people just send their kids off and then they're medicated for the rest of their life. And I want mine to learn how to overcome that things happen and you got to get back up and, we got to keep going no matter what. You still have a whole life ahead of you.
So how do we keep going? So now you've dealt with this. You've got 2 kids that just lost their mom. You've got a new wife. You guys married?
Planning a wedding when this happened.
Planning a wedding.
Yep.
New baby, either on the way or there.
The baby was there. Yeah.
Baby's there. Planning a wedding. Gosh, dude.
Yeah. 2 years old. My wife, man, she planned her whole wedding by herself. And, you know, I mean, I got my
Like,
boys.
just be there on November 15th and we'll get it done.
Yeah, make sure that they have fitted, that all you guys have tuxes.
Yeah.
You know, and then we had a really nice wedding. And like, as somebody, it's like one of my favorite stories. As somebody who grew up, like, I'd never even been to a wedding either. Like, I went to my first wedding with her and it was like one of her friends. That was like the first wedding I'd ever been to. So, like, in my whole life, like, weddings were kind of like something that, like, people who had a better life than me got to do, you know? And then we had a super nice wedding. We had at a cathedral in Joplin, and then we had our wedding reception at Downstream.
Nice.
You know, I got a good discount off there because I was a gold card because I played poker for a living.
You gave them all your money for the last couple years.
Yeah, and I mean, they had made me that year actually. You know, sometimes I think they're looking out for me as I played this Tuesday game with the old guys, and it's a big game.
Sure,
it's like a 5-10 game and 17 sessions. I was up $55,000, and that's one day a week, 17 weeks in a row, and I just, you know, I helped pay for like whatever I needed at that point. I'm like doing pretty well, and I'm just a cash game player at that point, and then like. I was like, oh, they have sports and stuff now. So now I switched over to tournaments.
Okay.
And then that was like a huge change because that's two different games. People who don't play poker don't understand, but not the same, you know. And I went in there and I was losing money at tournaments, you know. I'm trying to learn the concept, the difference, you know, you can't rebuy and stuff. And that took me about a year, 25 grand in buy-ins. And then I started my descent in that too, you know, online and live. And made really good money. And
I'm sure that's such a hard industry because it's such a like fast come, fast go industry. You know what I mean? You've got so much like your life, dog, it's just been chaos. Like growing up, chaos, moving back and forth, trying to be present in the kids, trying to chase a woman, meeting a new woman, trying to plan a wedding, having a baby there that's, you know, new on top of the two kids that are grieving the loss of their mom, switching from cash game to online game, making tons of money on Monday, getting broke on Tuesday. Like, how do you?
Those are the toughest. You know, like one of the pros said you can only have like one vice that you have. Like someone was drinking, but I had zero. I'm not gonna lie, I never drank. I go to Vegas for the World Series of Poker, zero alcohol. I go and play poker. I go back to my room.
Sure.
I didn't let any of like the stuff bother me. All the stuff that I could do, you know, strip clubs.
Sure.
Clubs, they're always giving me stuff, people talking to you. And, you know, I watched a lot of guys do that. And a lot of them have backers. They have business guys who are giving them, you know, 100 grand to play with.
Right.
And I'm watching them at 1 o'clock getting drunk. And I'm like, well, man, that guy made a lot of money. Why did he give it to you?
Yeah.
And I didn't want backers because I wanted to make my own money. I didn't want to give it away. The taxes as well, you know, then you got to give them their taxes, yours. I just like wanted to play on my own money. And I always did that. That was like one of my proudest things. And I just didn't have any vices and I knew when to leave.
Okay.
If I lost my buy-in, even though I had thousands back that I could rebuy in, if I lost what I went there with to lose or win with, I left.
Yeah. Okay.
And a couple times it was quick. I went to a tournament one time and I lost 2 buy-ins, $1,600 buy-ins in Durant, Oklahoma. And I drove there and I was there for 2 hours and I drove back 10 hours of driving, 2 hours of playing.
It'd be like that sometimes.
Yeah. And a lot of those guys will just go out there and they have it, so they just keep going. And I was like, I thought of my kids though. I think my kids really played a factor in like never over losing or being, you know, risking more than I could. You know, I knew I had kids.
That's a tough gamble. I mean, literally and figuratively, just because there's always the justification we can make as men to do more.
Yep.
Work more. If I could just get this, if I put in an extra couple hours, and you know, it's like, again, it's that threshold, that balance of.
Yep.
Do my kids need an extra $800 or do they need an extra 8 hours with me?
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, okay. So all of this, fast forward, poker online. And so now where are we at?
Now, about 1.5 years ago, I just had my 5th baby and his name's Zane.
And you know, at this point, how to have babies, right? So are we?
Yeah, well, we're done. Actually, he was the only one of my kids who wasn't planned.
Okay.
Like who we didn't want to, like my wife wanted to have one early. Like she actually was like, hey, you know, I'd rather have one young. And then with Gable, we were like, we're gonna have one more. And then he's nonverbal autistic.
Okay. And
he has a gene mutation as a SCN2A gene, which is a sodium blocker. And it like no speech, motor, you know, he has to use a device. So that's what he's at therapy right now, you know, ABA therapy to learn to use a device to communicate. And great kid though. I mean, I think a lot of people get wrong is that they think that they don't know and that they're just dumb. But I think they just have information there. They just can't get it out the same way. Because I know that I see him, you know, I can see into his eyes. It's not nothing there. There's a lot there. He
Yeah.
has a great heart, man. Probably my favorite human being to ever exist. He's my partner. I sleep with him every night. I've done that for 2 years, 2.5 years, like after mom weaned him, right when we found out. He had a seizure, actually, is how we found out. And she was weaning him, and we're in the bedroom, and I think God woke me up. Because I sleep 4 to 6 hours, and that's like all I need. But when I'm sleeping those 4 to 6 hours, I'm knocked, and something woke me up. And, you know, he was having a seizure, and I never seen a seizure, and I never moved that fast in my life.
Dude. Like, there's just been so much you've had to learn on the fly.
It's on the fly.
Everything
too,
has just been like an adjustment to chaos. Okay, so you have a 19-year-old son.
Yep.
17-year-old daughter.
Yep.
And then a
12-year-old daughter.
12-year-old daughter. 4-year-old son.
And a 1.5-year-old. And my 1.5-year-old, I think he has the most personality. I mean, like, he's super funny.
Yeah.
You know, and he's definitely neurotypical, and he's at daycare right now. And he's going to live on the wrestling mat probably, you know. I mean, that's just where he's going to spend a lot of his life
How do you afford 5 kids in today's economy?
Being broke. But, man, and just putting them first, you know, like prioritizing them. And, you know, trying to make the hardest part now is like when I listen to my 12-year-old is like she thinks that we love like Gable the most because he demands so much attention.
Has the most need for attention.
And I tell her, and I say, no, I said, do we always show up for you? You know, I always tell her, I say, are we there for everything that you do? And I said, you know, on a day-to-day need, he does need more than you. I said, but you have a lot more that you're going to be able to do than he can. And I said, so you have to learn that there's a balance, that he's going to be with me forever, and that you have a whole world in front of you that you get to go explore and stuff. And just like, we just had this talk the other day. It was funny. Like maybe 2 days ago, we just actually had this talk, and I was like, it's not a difference in love. I said, it's just a difference in needs.
Yeah. And again, it's, you know, that's hard to hear as a dad.
Yep.
Like, I don't want any of my kids thinking that they're getting underserved.
Absolutely.
But you're one person too. You also have a spouse that you're responsible to. And so if you're sleeping with your son, where's the wife sleeping?
Wife is with the baby in the bed, and then, you know, the other kids are obviously in their own rooms.
Man, so how do you do it? How do you have a relationship with your wife, sleeping in separate rooms, taking care of a baby, taking care of a guy that's got extra needs, trying to service these 3 kids? You've got a 19-year-old son.
Yes.
Who's now becoming a grown man. You want to instill in him key principles to go out and be a good man himself and avoid maybe some of the chaos that you avoided. What's the recipe? How does this work?
Man, you know, I think that me and my wife, I think that, like, you know, you hear like in those couples who don't sleep together, like I think it does like affect us to a point.
Yeah.
You know, because I think touch and, you know, like that stuff is very important and stuff. But I think that we both have a mutual understanding in our heart and our mind, and know that, you know, we have to look out for him first, that we made him together.
Sure.
And that like what he needs comes first.
Sure.
And I think as soon as the baby goes, I mean, our bed, we have got him a safety bed, which we got fundraised for, and it's big enough for all 3 of us.
Okay.
Whenever like the baby goes to his own room, she'll be able to come in, or we'll switch, you know, or what, you know, I think we'll be able to manage it a little better at that point. It's just been hard with the baby, you know, because he doesn't like the baby that much. The baby loves him.
I'm sure that's, I mean, so much to navigate, right? And you're trying to help him communicate. You're trying to understand what feels like an inhibited ability to communicate. And like you said, like, you look at his eyes and you know he's brilliant. You know he's got so much in his heart to get out, and you just want to help him get it out while trying to do all these other things.
Yeah, and guessing a lot. You know, when he's sick, guess.
Yeah.
You know, when he wants something, food, guessing. You know, I'm like trying to get him what he wants. We have little boards, you know, because autistic kids don't like very many foods either.
Sure.
So like a lot of time he's eating unhealthy, which I don't like for him, but he has to eat.
Yeah. Sure.
And they refuse, you know, there's no like, your neurotypical kid, you know, hey, sit down and eat that until it's done. You know, I know you need that, you know, protein and this. You can't do that with him. So, you know, you have to get him fed. So we found he loves bacon. So like that's a protein we give him. Even though it's probably like, you know, I was like, he loves bacon, and mom makes it for him every day.
Okay.
And she sets it in his lunchbox for therapy. There's bacon in there every day.
That's cool.
So
man. That's cool. That's, you know, it's your story is so heavy and yet so beautiful, because chaos has prepared you for chaos. I
Yeah.
mean, and like the chaos that you have now is such a brilliant chaos. Like
Yep.
I'm sure there are days where you lay down in bed and you're like, what is life?
I do that, and I have ADHD, so like my brain, I have to sleep with the TV on because like, and it was really funny the other night. I thought like it was waking him up, like the dryer was going, so I like turned everything off, and I'm like laying there trying to go to sleep. And an ADHD brain, when there's no noise, man, I was whipping through thoughts like you've never seen
Oh, and
before,
so we
man.
talked about this so last night, yeah. So we talked about ADHD in wrestling. And so one of the things that Travis said that was super brilliant, I think, is that his ADHD, he's poured it into wrestling. He's poured it into sports. And instead of medicating, instead of, grabbing a bunch of prescriptions or pharmaceuticals to numb or reduce the amount of, you know, hyperactive activity as a man, he's poured it into being efficient. And so I wanted to like highlight this and showcase this, that the coach of these kids labors with ADHD. He understands what it's like to have a neurotypical
Yep.
neurotypical child, autistic child, a 19-year-old son. He's got a 12-year-old daughter. He's got ADHD himself. He's been through chaos. So like the man leading your children is like the greatest person to be doing it because he fully has a grip on what it is. So instead of giving your kid, countless medications or trying to, it feels like a suppression almost, like you're trying to keep this down. He's got an outlet where kids can come and they can learn discipline and they can push themselves and they can build confidence. And that's so crucial. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this. So your wrestling academy, let's talk about it for a second. So Hooligan Wrestling Academy.
Hooligan Wrestling Academy.
Why Hooligan?
What I thought was when I was young, it's not as much now because a lot of these kids want to be pretty. They got to have the nicest shoes and, they come in with their nice gear. It's way different than when I was young. But I always remember when I was young, when you would get to a tournament and like the high schools walked in and we always had these old rip-off pants, and we just kind of looked with our hoodies on, cutting weight. I just thought that we all looked like a bunch of hooligans.
Just grungy.
And then they're like the most respectful people at the same time, but they are grungy,
Sure.
They're dirty, they're down to get mean, but then they're the same ones who are going to shake your hand after a match, especially the ones that are elite.
It's good.
So,
okay, so that's Hooligan. And so there are other youth wrestling academies in Springfield. It's like, it's like the chicken place. If there's a KFC in a corner, why put a Chick-fil-A? Why put a Raising Cane's? Why put a KFC? Like whatever it is. So what made you specifically want to start your own?
After my son, I wanted to do it for a few years, and I coached at Central Youth.
Okay.
And I did that for 2 years. And what I realized is I love coaching, but what made me like deter from like putting my all in was that I only got 4 months with them. And then as a good coach, anyone who wanted it, I had to send them to a club because, I'm just a youth program.
Sure.
So it was like, what am I building a relationship? Am I building long-term also relationships? I want to be more a part, of their growth and stuff. And,
because like wrestling can't be year round, right? It's
year round.
Okay.
If wrestling is your sport and you're looking to become, state champion on almost every way, you're doing it year round.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
That's 4 seasons in one where somebody's getting 1 season.
Yeah.
And, so like I wanted to be a part of their growth and development of more of their life than just 4 months and sending them off,
yeah. So that's good. That's another thing I want to talk about. So when we talked last night, so one thing that Travis has done to position himself as a premier gym in Springfield is that he has acquired top tier level coaches. And I'll let him talk about that in a second. But the other thing that I think that is really important that he has hit on just now and we keep talking about is that if he has an opportunity to interact with your kids, that if all he did was teach them how to wrestle really well, then he missed what his goal was. He missed his mark. I think the idea that this sport can and will yield characteristics of discipline, of self-confidence, of, maybe the kid lacks a little bit of aggression. You want him to kind of get a little tougher. Maybe the kid is overly aggressive and a little too hyperactive and needs some discipline. The reality is that wrestling is an individual sport where you train together. So like there is both the camaraderie of grinding with other people, learning to interact with other people, learning different personalities, but also at the end of the day, taking, serious and significant responsibility as yourself, knowing that the outcome is solely based on your performance. So
Absolutely.
really wrestling like spans so many like positive attributes for development. And so if your kids get a chance to come be a part of this, I wanted to showcase that, but also I wanted you to know who the man was behind Hooligan. So let's talk about your coaches for a second. So tell me about the coaching staff.
Okay, I have Kyle Caldwell, and he's a Willard graduate. 3-time. He actually started at Jury. He was actually, from what I know, he was their first full ride scholarship, and then he left there and went to NEO with Renfro, and went there a year, and then got went up to Grandview University up in Iowa, and that's an NAIA program, and they're won 17 national titles. They're by far in a way the best NAIA team, and he's a 3-time All-American from there.
Wow.
He went there, and yeah, and I mean, he's another one who like showcases you know you can mess up, because I know he had some mess ups at Jury, high level recruit, you know, and then he went and changed it. Now he has a master's, and he works at the detention center with kids.
Wow.
And one of the very, very good person, human, probably the best technician within 100 miles.
Yeah.
And I only give credit to that because Jeremy Phillips from the Osho is about 100 miles away, and he's won like 10 state titles as a high school coach. So.
Yeah, but okay, so local representation, a guy who was ridiculously successful, who came back here and is now giving back to the youth to teach the craft, but also working the detention center with at-risk youth.
Yep.
So you're like, man, I don't know if my kid could swing it. And you're like, trust me, our coach has got it figured out. Okay, so that's Kyle.
Yeah, that's Kyle. And then I have Coach Q, it's just Quentin Bisbee. And me and him are like, we talk every day. So, you know, Kyle comes in and he does a technique, you know, he's there with us. But me and Quentin like plan stuff, and we get stuff together. And Quentin keeps me in line with my ADHD. He's an accountant, so he's very on schedule and on pace, and I'm very like sporadic.
Yeah.
And there, so I think we kind of bring that out of each other.
Perfect yin and yang, yeah.
Yeah, you know, he's like, I told you that yesterday, Travis. And I'm like, my bad, man. You know,
even us getting together, he texts me like, hey, have you heard from Travis? And I go, well, he texted me, but he didn't text me back. And he's like, all right, I'll get a hold of him. So like, he was like the perfect between us to make sure we got connected.
I saw that too, because I like saw yours, and it was like only like one line, and I thought it said, I'll get back to you. And it said, you get back to me tomorrow. And that was on me. I just like skimmed it. It was
okay,
like,
man.
Yeah. And then, cause I even told him, I was like, no, he said he'd get back to me tomorrow. And
so Quentin's a local wrestler too. So he wrestled at.
Yeah, he wrestled at Willard as well.
Willard.
And then he's a jury wrestler under Coach Reynolds. And, you know, he's there every day, and he wants to get the most out of the kids. He expects a lot. You know, he's gritty. He's willing to, you know, yell if he needs to, which I love about him.
I got to watch him last night. And anytime, and fellas, I'll tell you this. When you do what you love and you do it as a service for other people, like seeing that purpose in another man, like it should and will inspire like a tenacity in yourself. So watching Coach Q yesterday work with these kids, to see him he's ear to ear with these kids, and he's got his hands on them. And he said, all right, listen to what I'm saying. And sometimes he's tough and sometimes he's soft, and he's different with this group and he's different with this group. And you can just see his commitment to this sport and to these kids. And to know that that's a service provided in Springfield from local guys, man, that can tell their story. Like, hey, I went here, and you know, he's an accountant. So he's a smart, intelligent man who's in here pouring his heart into these kids. Like, man, that's what you want.
Yep. And sometimes he was like, especially when he started, you know, they both approached me, my son wrestled with Kyle's youngest brother. They graduated the same year.
Okay.
And, you know, he's like a 4-time state medalist, Caleb Caldwell. And then my son medaled at state. My son started in 8th grade, medaled as a sophomore.
Okay.
So, you know, he was a very good wrestler. Wish he would have went further, but, you know, you make choices in your life. And
it happens.
That's, you know, life. You got to grow up and be a man. You don't want the same things, which is fine with me. And Caleb did the same thing. You know, he's working now instead of going to college as well. And he's a 4-time state medalist. You know, I'm sure he had a ton. But I think Coach Q, I love how he is at both, though, how he could get more mad at my daughter, though. I think sometimes he lets her, like, because she has the worst attitude. I love her. Great. Probably my easiest kid outside of the attitude. Always helpful around the house, give a ride, ask for things, you know, doesn't just take. I mean, it's not like a downfall, but sure, attitude is one thing we're working on now in the room. Yeah. And, you know, some other coaches are nicer, like in high school, her, but is like a mentor. He's such a good dude and
Yeah.
looking out for her in school and everything, and then, she wouldn't do that to Ruben. She wouldn't say a word to him, but dad is where we're seeing the attitude.
Right.
And when he's around,
right.
I think she can give him attitude. And, but I give them full reins in my room, the same as me. Like, I don't see it as like owner, me above them.
Sure.
I just don't see it like that. I see it as, hey, we're a team and let's do it. I'm not like possessive. I've just never been that way either. Like if we're doing something and you're there and you're giving me your time, man, we're all just a part of it.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, that's.
So if you caught a parent in the grocery store and because again, like wrestling comes with the stigma. If you've never been around wrestling, if you don't understand wrestling, why would I want to teach my kid violence? Right. That kind of in my first initial thought, it's like, man, I don't know if my kid's already kind of aggressive. I don't know if I want to teach him how to slam people. Right. So what would you tell that parent?
I think that learning self-defense is important, that it's not always violence. You're not out there to inflict violence on a random person. You're out there learning a skill that is anti-bullying, that is self-defense, that is mental strength, integrity, humbleness. I think that one of the hardest parts about wrestling, and this is for boys or girls, is you go out there in a 26-foot circle and you battle, and you sometimes you get pinned, and then your heart hurts, and then you have to shake the opponent and his coach's hands. And I think so many lessons are learned in that moment of where, you'll see kids get mad when they're younger, and then you'll see those same kids at 12 are shaking the hands and they're running off, and they might go into the bleachers and cry, but it's no longer on the mat. They're leaving the competitiveness on the mat. And I think that, Forbes said that they did 100 CEOs, and out of all the sports in the world, 43 out of 100 said the first sport that they would hire is a wrestler.
Wow.
Because they say they're gritty, they're attention to detail, they're always on time, and their work ethic. I think that wrestling gives you a work ethic in life that makes everything else easy. So I think it's just, I think it's a life sport as much as it is a physical sport. It's also the 14th most dangerous sport. Basketball is the number 1 most dangerous sport.
Okay, well, shoot.
Wrestling is number 14.
Okay.
There are rules around this. And I think learning to defend yourself, is important at any age. I mean, whether you're going to have a family or you're going to send your daughter to college. Like my daughter, when she goes to college, I think she's going to be far better off that she wrestled at the level that she does than she is if she.
Yeah, I mean, you're sending your daughter who, so not only did she learn the power of discipline, not only did she learn a substantial work ethic and attention to detail, but she also can defend herself.
Yep.
I mean, you send your daughter somewhere, you don't have to be, panicking back at home now that they're on their own. You're like, I've taught her a significant skill that protects her in a world that's very scary right now.
Yep. And people who know how to get, people, I don't know if you, like, people have met wrestlers, but they're some of the kindest people. They went in there and they battled every day at a practice, because what you see in a match is, if you have 5 matches, that's maybe at the most 30 minutes of what 1,000 hours that they put in.
Yeah.
So you're not really seeing everything that they're putting into it. And they're some of the kindest people, most giving people in the world.
Yeah.
Very faith-based, God-loving community. And, that's a big part of my life, is also Jesus. And, I want to incorporate that as well into my gym as, I move forward. So.
Okay. So Travis, man, I want to end with this last thing. So your life has been chaos. It has only become more chaos. I think you've just gotten better at managing chaos, like each and every step of the way. You've got 5 kids, you've got a wife, you've got a wrestling academy where you're trying to, create future strong athletes, both technique and character-wise. You're doing it here in the community. What is one thing you want people to know about Travis?
That, man, I'm always gonna give everything that I have to you, whether it's not just like on the mat teaching your kid to wrestle, but like outside of it. Like, I'm always gonna try to give them what I feel is the best thing for their life, whether it's good advice or advice that sucks to hear at that moment.
Yeah,
but it needs to be heard.
Yeah,
and I'm always caring about their growth. I think one thing that, if you asked a lot of people around me, is when I go to a wrestling tournament, my kids go to Glendale. but I'm rooting for 15 schools there, and I stand by the mat, and I root for those kids the same way that I root for mine. And I didn't even coach all of them, but
That's good.
I know them on a personal level, and I watch how hard they work, and I go out there and I root for them the same as I would my kids.
That's really good, Travis. All right, last thing. This is kind of a fun one. If you could give one singular piece of advice to wrestling parents of wrestlers at matches, in the stands, what would it be?
Mom, stay in the crowd. Ruben's gonna be happy I said that one.
Mom, stay in the crowd.
Coach Waite sees this. Yeah, stop videotaping right by the mat.
Gotcha.
You know, coaches got to get back and forth. Sometimes they have 15 wrestlers, you know, that they're going back and forth for, and then they have somebody also recording matches, you know, on there that's, you know, a manager who's trying to get them, you know, and I think that it's just calm down a little bit. And I love the wrestling moms. Don't get me wrong. You know, I think just back up a little bit, but because I love they're there for their kids. So I'm not taking anything away. I mean, they're there yelling, and, you know, they're not yelling every move like the dad is. They're
I'm
yelling,
sure it's every
up.
sport. You know, I mean, it's not just wrestling. But, you know, as a dad of a 5-year-old, where, you know, as he gets more and more competitive, you like think about, man, I don't want to be that parent that's caught on Facebook being like, what do you think, ref? How dare you? But, you know, I don't want to be
And I've done that. Hey, I've been there. You want to know what? Like, the one thing about me is I'm probably the nicest person, but I'm a little fiery. Like, and I think that's one thing, especially in my high school, that's like, when I make dual teams, kids love to be on it because I tell them to go out there and fight on the mat, that they're already in a fight, and I will deal with the ref. So like, instead, they're not allowed to argue a call. And if I think it's bad, I will argue it for you.
Yeah.
And I've gotten fiery before, you know, I mean, everybody knows that about me. I try to hone it the best I can. I get better every time.
Yeah, we want passion.
It's still a part of me that, you know, I'm not going to give up fully.
Yeah.
I'm going to hone it back a little bit, but.
That's good. Well, man, I appreciate this. You know, such a cool conversation for an hour for a guy I met for 10 minutes yesterday.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate you for letting me on here.
I'm really, I just want to take this moment and tell you I'm proud of you.
Thanks, man.
What you're doing, starting a business from scratch is hard. Taking your life savings to pour into something that you believe in while trying to feed 5 kids, while trying to take care of special significant needs, while trying to be a present husband, while trying to pour into these kids. It's a lot, dude. It's a lot. So here's my one piece of advice for you. I talk about this a lot with men, and it's our identity crisis, and it's a broken identity. We put our things, our eggs in one basket, whether it's our physical fitness, whether it's our business acumen, whether it's how much money we have in the bank, or the relationship we have with our kids, and all of those things at some point are going to fail.
Yep.
We're gonna have bad days. We're gonna go broke. We're gonna lose our job. Our kids are gonna act crazy and have bad attitudes. But man, knowing Jesus, like you've talked about it, having a relationship with God is the singular most important thing you'll ever do as a dad, as a husband, and as a wrestling coach.
Yep.
So I'm proud of what you're doing. And I hope that all of you that watch this, hear Travis's story and know like the motivation, the heart behind the man that is Hooligan Wrestling Academy.
Shout out to my wife, Bailey. Man, we couldn't do it without you. So I hope she knows that.
Heck yeah, man.
Like, sometimes I don't get to give her the appreciation because our life is so fast paced. And I'm like always telling her, I'm like, no, like we do, but I super appreciate her. It almost made me cry actually a little because
that's good, man.
She like literally like runs our family. I run around it, but she runs it internally, and she does all of the great things that are never seen. I do a lot of the things that are seen, but a lot of our greatness in our family is coming from all the things that she does that nobody sees. So I just want anybody who's watching this to know that.
That's good, man.
So
that's so good.
I have a great wife.
That's awesome. All right, Travis Hiteshew at Hooligan Wrestling Academy. Thanks for tuning in to the There Dad Podcast. We'll see you next time.